The ballroom glowed with golden chandeliers, polished marble floors reflecting the glittering gowns of the city's elite. In the center, a stern millionaire raised his glass, announcing a shocking challenge. "Whoever dances the waltz with my son tonight shall be his bride." The crowd gasped, laughter echoing through the hall. Whispers circled like wildfire when the family's black maid, dressed in her plain uniform, stepped forward. Guests sneered, mocking her audacity. What they didn't know was that beneath her modest appearance lay the past of a national dance champion. And as the orchestra swelled, the room was about to witness the unthinkable. The Van Buren estate was legendary, not just for its towering halls and priceless art, but for its reputation of untouchable wealth. Every season, the millionaire patriarch Charles Van Buren hosted extravagant galas where the city's most powerful gathered. His only son, Edward, was the heir everyone gossiped about, a quiet, reserved young man pressured to uphold the family's name. Charles, growing impatient with his son's reluctance to choose a wife, decided to turn this gala into a spectacle. The waltz would determine the future bride. Among the serving staff that night was Amara, the black maid who had worked in the mansion for years. To most guests, she was invisible, merely the one who carried trays, polished floors, and bowed in silence. Yet Amara carried a hidden history. Before hardship forced her into servitude, she had once graced international stages as a dancer. A tragic family loss had shattered her dreams, leaving her to rebuild life in the shadows of others' wealth. As the orchestra prepared for the waltz, whispers swirled of which glamorous lady would take Edward's hand. But when no one stepped forward quickly enough, Amara, tired of the cruel laughter directed at her for even standing too close to the dance floor, lifted her chin. The hall froze as she quietly walked toward Edward, ignoring the gasps and muffled chuckles. Charles's booming voice declared mockingly, "If you dance this waltz, you marry my son." The crowd erupted in laughter, believing it to be a cruel joke. But what they didn't expect was that Amara wasn't stepping forward to be mocked. She was stepping forward to remind the world who she once was and who she still could be. The music began softly, violins weaving through the air as Amara placed her hand gently in Edward's. He looked startled, uncertain, but something in her steady gaze calmed him. Around them, the elite snickered, their jewels glittering as they leaned in to mock every step. Charles leaned back, a cruel smirk plastered across his face, convinced his son would stumble into humiliation. But then, Amara moved. Her posture was flawless, her frame commanding yet graceful. The first glide across the marble floor silenced a portion of the laughter. Edward, though stiff at first, began to follow her lead. Her years of hidden practice, stolen moments twirling alone in servant quarters after scrubbing floors, now unfolded in perfect rhythm. As the tempo swelled, Amara spun with elegance that no gown could rival. The whispers began to shift, from mockery to shock. Guests who moments ago jeered were now leaning forward, mesmerized. Some even recognized familiar moves, ones only professionals could master. Could it be possible? But Charles's eyes narrowed. His intent had been to mock her, to prove a point that people like her could never belong in his world. Instead, the ballroom was slowly bending in her favor. Determined to break her spirit, he gestured to the conductor to quicken the pace. The music surged, violins slicing faster, as if to dare her to keep up. And she did. With every beat, Amara's strength shone brighter. Her spins grew sharper, her footwork more precise, her frame never breaking. Edward, inspired, began to match her with unexpected confidence, transforming from timid air into a dancer with presence. For the first time in his life, he wasn't performing for his father. He was moving in harmony with someone who believed in him. By now, the hall was breathless. Some guests clutched their pearls, others stood to see better. jaws hanging open at the sight of a maid outshining every socialite in the room. And yet beneath the beauty of her movements, there lingered an unspoken tension. Everyone knew what Charles had declared. If she finished this dance, if she completed this waltz perfectly, his mocking words would seal into something very real. The stakes were no longer about humiliation. They were about belonging, dignity, and defiance against centuries of prejudice. Each step Amara took was more than a dance. It was a rebellion against the chains that had kept her unseen. And with every passing second, the room realized this was no accident. This was destiny reclaiming its spotlight. The orchestra reached its peak, every note soaring with the intensity of a storm. Amara and Edward spun to the center of the floor, her skirt fanning like a flame, his frame steady at her side. The two moved as though born for this moment, fluid, powerful, unstoppable. And then it happened. Amara executed a flawless spin and dipped gracefully into Edward's arms, holding the final pose with regal precision. Silence engulfed the room. Not a whisper, not a laugh, not a single clink of glass. Then, slowly, thunderous applause erupted. Some cheered out of genuine awe, others out of disbelief, and many because they couldn't deny the artistry they had just witnessed. Guests who had mocked her stood to their feet, unable to contain the sheer force of what they had seen. Edward, breathless but smiling, looked at Amara with something new: respect. He had never seen anyone stand so boldly against his father's cruelty, and though he had been dragged into this spectacle unwillingly, he now stood tall beside her. But Charles? His face was pale, his fists clenched. He had expected ridicule, not reverence. His mocking words, "If you dance this waltz, you marry my son," now echoed back like a curse. He had trapped himself in his own arrogance. To deny Amara now would be to admit that his word, his authority, meant nothing. The climax wasn't just the dance. It was the shift of power. For the first time, the millionaire who controlled every room found himself cornered, not by wealth, not by influence, but by truth. And that truth was undeniable. The black maid he mocked was not just his equal. She had just outshined his entire legacy. The applause slowly died, but its echo lingered like a thunderstorm rolling away. Charles attempted to speak, but the crowd's energy drowned him out. The declaration had been public. His mocking challenge, meant to humiliate, now bound him to honor. Edward took a step forward, still holding Amara's hand. His voice was calm but resolute as he addressed the guests, not his father. He spoke not of wealth or duty, but of respect. He declared that the dance was more than a performance. It was a statement of courage, dignity, and partnership. And in that moment, for the first time in his life, he defied his father openly. Amara stood quietly, her posture unbroken. She had nothing to prove anymore. She had already won. Whether Charles approved or not, the room itself had shifted. People who once dismissed her now saw her strength. Her story, hidden for so long, had exploded into the spotlight. The aftermath was not simple. Rumors spread for weeks. Some society women scoffed, others envied, but many admired her bravery. Whispers of the maid who danced like a queen circled beyond the city, becoming a tale retold at every gathering. And though Charles tried to claw back control, his words could not. The ballroom glowed with golden chandeliers, polished marble floors reflecting the glittering gowns of the city's elite. In the center, a stern millionaire raised his glass, announcing a shocking challenge. "Whoever dances the waltz with my son tonight shall be his bride." The crowd gasped, laughter echoing through the hall. Whispers circled like wildfire when the family's black maid, dressed in her plain uniform, stepped forward. Guests sneered, mocking her audacity. What they didn't know was that beneath her modest appearance lay the past of a national dance champion. And as the orchestra swelled, the room was about to witness the unthinkable. The Van Buren estate was legendary, not just for its towering halls and priceless art, but for its reputation of untouchable wealth. Every season, the millionaire patriarch Charles Van Buren hosted extravagant galas where the city's most powerful gathered. His only son, Edward, was the heir everyone gossiped about, a quiet, reserved young man pressured to uphold the family's name. Charles, growing impatient with his son's reluctance to choose a wife, decided to turn this gala into a spectacle. The waltz would determine the future bride. Among the serving staff that night was Amara, the black maid who had worked in the mansion for years. To most guests,